if you do it like ethically, normally by shipping decent work and being a normal human, I knew there will be some ways how to monetize it.
Our guest today uses visuals to share easy to digest ideas on creative business and personal development. Please welcome Janis Ozolins.
I feel like we have so much in common, so I'm excited to dive in a little bit, nerd out on some visual stuff and how to grow a business and a brand and do it in a way that seems to fit your style. I think a good place to start is just kind of big picture. I'm curious, share as much detail as you feel comfortable with. Like, how did you get here?
I guess giving like a big picture, in general, just doing the regular random jobs when I was like 16, 18, whatever, then somehow got in the corporate world, did their various things like for some 8 years, a bit of technical work and then a bit of project management type of stuff. And there was a point where I felt a bit like in a routine, a bit lost. And one of my friends said, "Hey, do you want to go and learn business psychology?" And I was like, sounds interesting, a bit of business, a bit of psychology. I don't really know what I want to do with my life, fuck it, let's do it. Let's go. Let's see where it ends. And there was this one interesting subject, which was something about like creating your business or something like that. And basically the idea was there, hey class, in 1 week you need to come and present here in front of the class like a business case, whatever, And I don't remember exactly, but something back then in my brain clicked, because I always have been this, I think I had this entrepreneurial type of mindset or whenever, but I was always like this entrepreneur, always talking big, and I could build the next Facebook, whatever, you say all these random things, but never really execute on anything. So I was a big talker, but not much of a doer. And at that time, something clicked, and I said to myself, like, in a week, I will come in front of that class and I'll figure out something that I can do, without any additional resources, which I didn't have, something that I will be able to do aside my 9 to 5 job. So I figured out I really want to figure out something. And that's when I kind of that week I just started to Google around, and that was around 6-7 years ago from this point. So I started Google around, and there was like, okay, this online business sounds interesting. Tim Ferriss, 4-hour work week. What's going on here? Sounds super compelling. And when I picked up, like, whatever, I presented my business case. It was absolute random stuff, something about Pinterest, don't really remember, and that's not really important. But I kind of got the desire, the love of this, like, damn, this online business sounds super interesting. I want this. I want this laptop lifestyle. I picked up like Tim Ferriss's book. I still remember I was like 2 hours in the book, and I was like saying to myself, like, can we swear here? It's fine. I was like,
Yes.
holy shit, Janis, you have been such an idiot. I was like my mid-20s or something like that. And I never really like read books before that or whatever. And I just, oh my God, there's so much to learn. There's so much out there. This is so exciting. I absolutely lost my mind. I stopped listening to music. I started to listen like to audiobooks, podcasts, whatever. And for 4 years, I tried various different creative type of things, a bit of YouTube, a bit of blogging, like various different things, anything that felt interesting. I just tried it, failed at it, didn't really like it, felt like an uphill battle, whatever. I just kept learning, kept trying things, failed, worked my 9 to 5. And that was basically 4 years without any results, just being super curious and trying various different things, which led nowhere. And then two and a half years ago, I kind of stumbled upon this idea of explaining ideas visually. Like initially, probably most people here know James Clear, and he has these blog posts he writes and his book, of course. And sometimes he adds various different illustrations in his blog posts just to kind of explain the concepts a bit better. And that was the first time when I was like, damn, it's very interesting that you can actually explain a whole idea in like whatever, a random concept or whatever. But to me, it still felt like visuals is something that is like kind of complementary to your blog posts or whatever. But later down the line, you probably know the guy Jack Butcher, famous of his visualized value and black and white illustrations or whatever. And he was like a couple of years in already into this online business type of thing. And he was the first person who, just by doing his stuff, he proved to me that damn, like visuals can be a thing on its own, you know. It shouldn't necessarily be like a complementary to a blog post, because writing still comes super hard for me. It's not easy for me, you know. But he proved that visuals can be a thing on its own, and that's where I kind of got this validation that maybe there is something to it, and I should continue to do it, because I really enjoyed the process. It was fun for me. It was just interesting. So yeah, 2.5 years ago, I just started to share those visuals daily, and kind of iterated from there. And somehow we ended up here. I don't know, maybe there are some follow-up questions in between. But when I started it, soon after, for the first time in my life, I started to experience some sort of, you know, validation from audience. You know, people started to follow me. They started to like my stuff, you know, and 4 years there was like zero results. So I was like, oh my God, there is something to it. And I know some 6 months in, when I started to get in my DMs some sort of freelance gigs and whatever, we kind of sat down with my wife, because it was quite stressful at that point at the job. And yeah, I left my 9 to 5. We understood that with some government support and some savings or whatever, we can like maintain our lifestyle for 2.5 years or so. So we thought, okay, whatever, you know, let's pull the plug and see where it leads. And it's been great ever since. So that's kind of the big picture. We can peel it
Yeah.
in whatever direction you want.
So yeah, so many things, but I mean, what really piques my interest is the timeline, because so many people can relate to that. Everyone in that realm is like trying to do what you did, and maybe they try for a couple months, maybe they try for 10 years. You know, there are people that figure it out in a few months, or people that it takes forever, you know. So it sounds like it was about 4 years of just trying things and working your 9 to 5, and then an additional 2 years of what you're doing now. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say what I do now is 2.5 years. Yeah, 2.5 years.
Awesome. So it's been a pretty long journey, you'd
It
say.
definitely been, yeah. But I would say it really feels like the hardest part is to figure out, you know, what is your thing, you know, because I don't know. And I think one like thing which I realized a little bit later down the line, I started to listen a bit to myself, like, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses, you know? And I tried to be like, I loved Matt Diavela, you know, the YouTuber who makes these
For sure.
awesome videos and stuff. I was, oh man, I want to be the next Matt Diavela. So I tried like 4 YouTube videos, tried to do like Matt Diavela. I was just like, there's no way I can sustain this, you know, like, and then pump out weekly. Like, what I'm really like kidding here? Like, it was still fun and interesting, but not that fun. So kind of visuals was where I understood, like, okay, a lot of things make sense for kind of my strengths, weaknesses, and just intrinsic motivation. So I don't know, but yeah, you know, it's easy to talk about the stuff when you look back, but when you're there, it's just it's just a mess.
Well, and you must have been pretty highly motivated, because that period of time of those 4 years of trying things and failing and trying things and failing, that's where most people just quit and they stay with their 9 to 5. And you kind of kept going and finally found something that, you know, really worked for you.
Yeah, but I think failing is a strong word here, because in general, the whole process of chasing this online business stuff, I kept it fun for myself, you know. I did it on the sides, you know. As I said, I didn't listen to music. I listened to like audiobooks and podcasts and whatever, but that was just like, it was so interesting. I was like super, it was just super interesting. And I tried projects, and I maybe tried them mostly because I thought I like them, and then I tried them. No, I don't like them. Fuck it, you know. Let's leave that.
Yeah.
Let's find another thing that I like. I never like put these extreme goals to myself or whatever. I was like a kid. I was just playing with these whatever online business type of thingies, and I didn't put big pressure to myself. And maybe that was a good case, you know, looking back, because I ended up finding something I really enjoyed, which brought me like other types of success as well. So
Yeah, I love how you talked about it, because it sounds like you didn't put pressure on yourself. And a lot of times I think people do, you know, and if that first thing doesn't work, then they feel bad about it. And, you know, but it sounds like you really had fun. I wonder, how did you turn then this idea of explaining things visually, which I got to say, I was looking through some of your stuff on Instagram, and one of them really stuck in my head. It has nothing to do with the question I'm going to ask, but I can't get out of my head because it's the two pencils. It's like the long pencil and the short pencil. Do the work before you go get the tool. We did a whole episode on that because you get so lost in finding tools. But so how did you take doing something like that and actually turn that into a business? Because clearly you can explain things visually, but then how do you turn that into a business?
Well, my thinking was rather simple, because when I started to do these visuals and I started to get some likes, some followers and stuff like that, I was like, in general, by looking at this online business space and other creators, what I understood is like, if you genuinely can build an audience that likes your work, if you do it like ethically, normally by shipping decent work and being a normal human, I knew there will be some ways how to monetize it. Of course, I had in mind that I could probably make an online course, as most creators do, whatever thing they master or whatever. I understood that that could be potentially a thing I could do. But yeah, there wasn't much of anything. I just, okay, I'll keep sharing this. Seems that people like it. I love to do it as well. I'll just build an audience and see where it leads. And where it led was that initially some freelance gigs kind of came in, and I must say I was very kind of not lucky, but happy that I was in a position to reject anything that felt like I don't want to do this, because I wasn't in a need to get a freelance. I didn't want to exchange my 9 to 5 to being a freelancer. I wanted more like productized type of creative career instead of just being a freelancer. But anyhow, that was some form of validation. And later, around, I would say, 6, 7, 9 months in, when I started to share my visuals daily, I received probably up to 10 questions, either in the comments or in the DMs. Hey, Janis, how do you do this? Can you teach me this? Questions like this. And that was like a very solid validation to build a course. I was like, okay, people are asking for it, let's try it. So I pre-sold that. And it's been my biggest revenue driver since now. It's not a massive business, at the moment. I have like big plans for future or whatever. But so far it's been like, course is generating most of my revenue, and I do a bit of freelance on the side, which supplements it nicely. And that so far pretty much is the whole business. Now I have a bit of like sponsorships in the newsletter and stuff like that, but that's like a tiny portion from the whole thing, which later down the line I hope could be potentially something bigger. But yeah, it's very simple, not a big business planning or whatever here, just focused on the audience and kind of building it ethically instead of trying kind of to hack growth or whatever. That's basically it.
It sounds like, well, I'll let you answer. I mean, would you describe your journey so far as like grinding and hustling? And if not, is there any of that? Like, what level of kind of like putting your head down, kind of grinding is and was there in this journey to get here?
Well, in general, I would definitely say that on day to day, it's definitely not a hustle. Like one reason for it, because, many other people like you, you do podcasts, you need to schedule interviews, whatever. I'm sure you love these conversations and it's like play, but I'm sure there are some not so fun parts of the business. What you usually hear when it comes like to writers often tell about their work that, I need to write, I need to sit and I need to force myself to pump out these pages. It starts to feel that there's a bit of a grind. When it comes to visuals, it wasn't even overwhelming when I did my 9 to 5. I woke up earlier than I needed to start my work. And the beautiful part about visuals is that 80% of the work is brainstorming. I listen to podcasts, I hear an interesting idea, I see some random whatever, some plug or something, and it triggers some ideas. I just quickly sketch them down. It's all like brainstorming throughout the day, which is fun and playful. Everybody in corporate world loves to go on the whiteboard, and sketch some things out and blah blah blah. Do all this stuff that's super fun and interesting. And for the visuals, like 80% of the work is that enjoyable part. Then I just sit down on my laptop, and in Figma or whatever. Of course, first visuals comes a bit harder, but when you get like kind of your hand going, then it's you can pump out a visual, in 10, 15, 20, 1 hour. It depends a bit on the style or whatever you do. So that part of the business is definitely doesn't feel like a grind. Of course, when I pre-sold the course and I needed to create all the content, when I have this deadline, then like two weeks was absolute madness, crazy. But those are like sprints or whatever. Day-to-day stuff is fine. Now, of course, when you have a bit bigger audience, you get a lot of inquiries, a lot of DMs and blah blah blah. You try to keep up with it. That a bit starts to feel like some sort of work, but still in general very, very enjoyable, I would say.
After looking at your work, did you take art class in school? Did you is it always something that you've done and enjoyed and played with? Did you have any training?
Usually when people say, do you have a design background, I say that I don't. But to be fully honest, like my secondary school was like kind of mixed with interior design. So there was some designing going on, but in general, I don't feel like a designer. If you ask me to design a website, I'm like, no. And when I got some freelance and people asked me like, hey, can you do this design work for us? I was like, sorry, no, that is not my field. What I do is like, I can explain ideas visually. I can come up with concepts, that maybe later your designer can come up and feel whatever, the style you see like online for my visuals, it's just a style that I developed, and I stick to it, and it's very easy. And when I break it down, like both of you, I don't know if you are designers or not, but both of you can create stuff like I do, it maybe looks hard when you look at it, but when you like break it down and understand, okay, it's actually not that hard. You use like these 3 tools from Figma, and you just need to do these whatever things, and then that's about
Right.
it. It's not that hard as with many things. So in general, I say no, I'm not really a designer. That's why kind of my visuals are pretty basic or stripped down as well. And I would say like, if you look at the work by Jack Butcher, these black and white visuals, which are even 10 times more simpler than my stuff, I believe everybody could create them by watching, 15-minute YouTube tutorial. But of course, the hardest part is to come up with these concepts, and figure out these interesting, whatever, this is pointless, and trend goes up. That's the magic. That's the hardest part, not the designing. So I'm always like very focused on the ideas, and visual part is kind of secondary. I just develop my style and I stick to it, and you can do whatever as well, like just black marker on white paper, and it works as well.
I guess I wondered because as I look through your work, you do have a style. It is a thing. Like now that I've seen it, if I randomly saw it somewhere, I would wonder, oh, that looks like something Janis did, right? So I just kind of wondered how that developed, if that's something you played with before you started playing with explaining things visually, or it just came as part of that process.
Oh, one thing which I can mention, it definitely, the style evolved over time. Of course, at the beginning, Jack Butcher was a big influence on me, so my style was very close to him. I tried like, let me do this, whatever simple thing as well. I tried to differentiate myself. I thought, maybe I could use pixels, or whatever, be somehow a bit different, but still very slick or whatever. But over time, I developed this, which is a bit like not all over the place style, but it's kind of imperfect. You can see the fillings sometimes go outside the lines, and the lines are not super straight or whatever. A big reason for it is because I don't think I struggle anymore with perfectionism that much, but in general, I really struggle with perfectionism. So creating this imperfect style was the idea how I can beat my perfectionism, because kind of imperfect, if the style is intentionally imperfect, it's kind of perfect. So it was easier to silence my perfectionism with this type of style. And it was, developed over time.
I relate so much to that. I mean, that's basically like if you were to ask me if I was a designer, I would really hesitate to say yes. I mean, now like I have the portfolio to back that up, but I don't have like the kind of formal, certification or
Yeah.
education around it. But like over the past 6-7 years, I've kind of slowly pieced it together. And it's funny because just exactly what you said, like my first phase of being a designer without being a designer was, oh, I need to make this look cool. I need to add these, I need to have all these different layers. And then, you're looking at other designers and you're like, wow, I could never do that. The comparison game. And then now I've learned and realized like the value is removing, only having what's absolutely necessary is the art of design. And design, of course, is a huge word, huge category. So what it looks like you've done is you've kind of narrowed in your focus to have a very niche um, skill around design. Like you've narrowed in your focus. You visualize value and concepts with a style that is extremely distinguishable and unique. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, thank you. I try to keep it simple. I would say another big influence when it comes to visuals was like I really like this guy who's like a marketing dude. I think his name is Donald Miller. He has a book called The
Oh
Story
yeah.
Brand, I think. It's around marketing, and he has this nice line that it was more about the ads, but basically you need to understand that when a person reads your advertisement or whatever, they are burning calories
Mm-hmm.
while they kind of reading it, and you want to make sure that you kind of deliver your value with them burning as least amount of calories as possible. And that's kind of somehow has stick to my mind, and always like I try to think like, okay, is this element or whatever really adding to the idea I'm trying to communicate here, or it's just fluff that I need to get rid of? So that's
Yeah.
another thing I try to keep in mind. I think it's a nice idea in general.
An
That's so
example of that.
interesting. Go ahead, Miles.
I was just gonna say really quick. A cool example is you don't have on your post. You don't have your tag, your account, your name. You
I
just.
have it. I have it now.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I have it
I
now,
just
but
listened to an older episode.
yeah. I followed that approach for a very long time. I didn't add
Mm-hmm.
any type of, but over time we had some chats in the community, and there's some other people who like he created
Steven.
this compelling case that you need to do it because of this and that. But I did it now in like a different way. I have this small ozo.art, which is basically a domain name. If you go to that link, it just leads you to my website and a page where blah blah blah. You found this visual from online. By the way, you can share them, blah blah blah. But tag me, blah blah blah, because like loads of
Super
people just
simple.
take these visuals and just share them online. And I'm kind of fine, cool. More people see this stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there's just so much unethical stuff is going on, and some other person said me something about like copyright laws or whatever. If I add it there, I can actually like sue them or whatever. I would never do it, but it was just okay. I heard a lot of compelling cases why I should do it, so I did in the most like ethical way that was kind of fine for me. But at the beginning, yeah, I didn't add even my thing because it was just unnecessary clutter in my opinion. I was like, okay, Jack Butcher is not adding it, works for him, why not me? That was the thinking back then. Now I added something, so yeah, things
I
change.
love it.
I love the way you're both talking about in a visual, in the visual design world, keeping things simple, not having anything there that doesn't need to be there. And coming from the music and songwriting world, same thing. Coming from the even, writing longer, any kind of longer writing prose or books, whatever, same thing, to a large extent. It's interesting to me how that crosses sort of all creative barriers. Like the best kind of work is the stuff that really just gets to the heart of it and doesn't have fluff or anything that really doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's all over the world. I think it was even something similar that I once heard some Elon Musk interview where he talked about his rocket engineering stuff, and he was just like having these conversations with the engineers as well, like And after some while they understand, or it was about Tesla or whatever, I didn't remember. It was like, why there is this hole or whatever, and then nobody was able to answer what that hole meant to do, and they just get rid of the hole because it seems like it doesn't add any value, it doesn't have any purpose. So they constantly kind of question, does this need to be there, does this need to be there? So it's just all across, I guess, any field, anything. It's a good mindset to have in general.
That's a great example.
I have a songwriter friend named Sam Baker, really great songwriter. And his way of talking about that is he would say, reduce, reduce, reduce. You're just constantly taking away. What else can I take out of here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Janis, I'm curious. This is an interesting question. Have you ever put out a piece, a visual, and you realized after you put it out that it was wrong or incorrect or confusing? Like, have you ever kind of messed up in that way? And what was that like?
First of all, those are small mistakes, because it's just one little piece of content. Of course, earlier in your journey, you take it more harshly, especially if somebody add some snarky comment that this is wrong. Holy shit, they're right. And then, you get 10 positive comments and 1 negative, but you're of course obsessing about the negative comment for the rest of the week,
right,
which is a bit sad, but happens. But I don't bother about it too much in general. If I genuinely, it hasn't happened too often because I think I'm not like very controversial, or I don't have these super spiky point of views or whatever, but sometimes somebody adds and I'm like, it sounds like a good point, and of course, a lot of the times I say like context matters, because if I add like little one-liner, and few words on my visual, it really depends on the context. You can't just take it like and apply it for anything, and that works. So I'm rambling here, but like my main things are, I try to create content I would like to consume. So if I look at it, I'm like, I would like to see this. Yeah, fine, let's go. And I don't care if some people don't like it. I don't care. In general, I try to attract people who are like similar like me, similar values, whatever. That's kind of my one way of doing things. Another thing is like I usually bounce my visuals. Just I have my wife next to me and I ask like, do you get this? And I really don't usually ask for what do you think about this or something, because one of my main things is like to communicate ideas like this, be very snappy and be clear. So I don't care if you think if the idea is good or bad, of course, if it's bad, somebody will tell me, but do they get this? Because often I see this like confusion for like 10 seconds. And then I understand, okay, I need to go back to the drawing board because something is not clear there. So that's one thing which I do, which usually improves to put out work that at least to me seems decent or whatever. Sure. And I don't know, kind of final point is usually I really have embraced this idea of iterations because as I said, I struggle with perfectionism and I really, okay, I will push out this stuff. I think it's good enough. I would like to see this. It seems clear, and I can come back in 3-4 months. I can look at it again. I can improve it. I have another content that I can publish, that day. So that's another thing I kind of do, which is helpful. But yeah, in general, it's fine.
You have a good. Sounds like you've kind of created your own filtering process of iterating and finding that balance between perfection. A healthy dose of perfection, which I think plays a really important role in the quality of your work, and it shows.
Yeah, thank you. I think perfection is in general, it's not bad, and we should strive for really great work, but it's always, whatever, what's the quote? Don't be the perfect enemy of good or something like that. We all know it, but It's just, we need to ship things, but we can always improve, unless, of course, if it's like a book or some big deal, of course, take more weeks, spend more time on it, try really to polish, ask more feedback, it makes sense. But for like a social media post, just, do your little thing, ship it, improve it, see the feedback, whatever, and just keep going.
Yeah, it's like perfectionism only hurts when it keeps you from shipping your work, right? When you just won't do it, even when it's truly done, And you can beat work to death too. I mean, polishing and making something good is great, but at some point you have to know when to stop.
Yeah,
Right?
when you say this phrase, it reminds me there definitely have been some cases in the visual world where I have illustrated the concept, and often like the first idea which comes to me is often really good and I should publish it. But then I start really to work on it and perfect it, and I just get way away from like that thing was way better than the concept
Yes.
you came up with here because I just whatever. And I was too much in my head and just making it more complex or whatever. So that's often the case. So yeah, it's a good. I guess it's good to know when when to stop and when it's good. And sometimes that first kind of idea is often the best.
I've done that sometimes with even like with making records. You're having fun and you're exploring, you just start piling all this stuff on top of the song. And then you listen to it, you're like, what did I do? Like this has nothing to do with what I was going for. And you just got to start, going back to the drawing board, taking it away. It's that same thing. I think you're right. Like oftentimes that first idea or inspiration or feeling that you had inside the work, that's the one, hard part's just sticking with it.
Yeah, true. There is some magic to that, and I guess we need to listen more to our hearts.
I'm curious, just to dip into like kind of strategy, I guess a little bit. You've grown a good sized audience, at least on Instagram. I'm not really sure the whole landscape the ecosystem that you've created, but I do know that on Instagram, which is where I initially found you, you have over 100K followers. I'm curious if there is like one kind of main domino, whether that's like a technical skill or more just like personal, like consistency and iteration. Is there one thing you can kind of point to that's allowed you to build that audience?
Yeah, well, there's different points, and I would say like platforms change, the algorithms change. I initially like went all in on Twitter. That was like because that was the medium I really like to use it. So initially I built my biggest audience there, but over time Instagram kind of surpassed it because soon enough I just started to repurpose my work. I was like focused on Twitter, meaning I was like posting there. I was engaging the most there, jumping on other people's comments and whatever, and just like really using that platform. And I kind of repurposed my work on Instagram and LinkedIn. Sorry. But the thing was, yeah, that Instagram kind of surpassed it over time. And of course, the start is the most difficult, grueling part where it's just one follower, one new connection, and at the beginning, I would really say, I think Twitter is really nice in terms that it's nice to find other people there and jump in the comments and develop these connections. I think it's more difficult on Instagram. I don't know, because it's just the nature of the platform, because Twitter has these threads and these quote retweets, and it's like more connected, but Instagram is more like you follow this person and you go in the comments and then you read something. It's just a bit more different. But okay, I'm rambling a bit here, but I really enjoy Twitter in general. But Instagram kind of grew until 10K. It was slow, and then I think basically 3 or 4 posts, I would say maybe 2 or 3 posts brought like, I don't know, 60K subscribers or whatever. You just went viral, and it's crazy, and it brought massive amounts of followers. But until that, you just publish every day, use your hashtags or whatever, and slowly grow, and then something pops, and nice, you get a cool, nice little spike. But yeah, then there was like, I don't know, this summer it was rather calm, and I didn't gain much of a growth still by posting it daily. And now I think something has a bit changed in the algorithm, but in general I post every day. I use a bit of my hashtags, and I gain about I don't know 100 200 people every day. New people kind of find my work, and that's just organically by posting every day, by using some hashtags. I don't have any tricks. I have never bought followers or something like that. But yeah, it's just showing up with the work and something pops and then you can get a lot of followers, but I don't have any tricks or anything like that. I guess
I love it.
reels are working, but I somehow managed to do it without them. So very happy for that, because
Yeah.
video is something I don't have yet.
You know, you brought up Twitter and starting on Twitter, and that was a really great way for you to kind of get started and engage. Is it different for you now?
I would say now it's more even between all of the platforms, honestly, because yeah, it's very different now. The engagement definitely, like, because there are differences. I still don't know what to make of LinkedIn. It's still kind of odd to me or whatever. I'm not sure. But what I would say, like, Instagram to me is more like where it feels like it's more like a Netflix type of social media where people are just scrolling, liking, scrolling, but they don't have any intentions to take it further, just spending their time there, clicking, liking, getting some ideas, whatever. Twitter, on the other hand, is a place where at least there's a lot of like CEOs and business people or whatever. And still to this date, even if my Twitter audience is like 50,000 or something, and Instagram is like more than twice as big, by far I have got more freelance gigs from Twitter. So it feels like more like some sort of, like a networking event. And if you find your community, but you need to find your community. If you go by default, you'll just be blasted with like political stuff, and it will be just crazy. But if you find your people, it can be a really nice and great place to find like good connections and nice business deals and stuff like that.
Have the fairly recent changes to Twitter affected your audience or your ability to keep doing what you're doing on the platform?
No, not much have changed. Of course, like everything changes, but just Elon just changing things left and right, and it's like all over the
Yeah.
all over the place.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but in general, I see it as a positive, because I think the idea of Twitter is extremely compelling, and I think for years it was very stuck because there was zero like innovation or whatever. But now, since like Elon took it over, the amount of new features and stuff we have gotten here, it's like crazy. There's definitely some negatives as well. I would say that has happened with it, but in general, I think it's a great platform, and I'm very optimistic about it, I would say. So we'll see. I don't know. But I don't see it much. You just follow your people, and if you ignore the crazy noise, it's a very nice place to be.
Well, I guess that's kind of true of social media in general. You got to find your people and ignore the crazy noise.
Yeah, exactly. And but in general, all these changes it's definitely have convinced me more that building an email list is like a good, smart idea to do. And that's something like I don't know, maybe, we'll see, but I don't see myself like in 10 years still engaging like in social media or whatever. Probably I'll just repurpose my stuff there, but in general, I hope there could be like an email list and some meaningful connections I would develop there, because you know how social media is designed, and I've spent way too much time there, especially now when you can like justify it as, oh, it's for business, but you just doom scroll for hours, some random stuff, and yeah. So I don't know what to make of it, but still super grateful. Without social media, we would not be talking here. So.
Sure.
Exactly.
Have you added building an email list to your ecosystem, so to speak?
Yeah. I did it rather early on, but early on it was just like, hey, I have an email list where I don't post anything, because I didn't have any strategy for it. But now I try to be very consistent, and I have been very recently. I developed, I think a process that I really like, because previously it was like every week get some ideas, and it was just like short, snappy ideas in my like easy to digest type of format. But what I understood is like my content is very, it's like chips. Oh, nice, cool idea, you ate it or whatever. But when you listen to a podcast, or when you read a long article or whatever, you really build more trust with that person. And that's something which I don't have. I just have these nice little chips spread across the internet, So what I now try to do with my newsletter is I try to make it like on Monday, I announced that, for example, this week, after this podcast episode, I need to finish and send out my newsletter. But basically, the idea is that on Monday, I announced like, hey, how can I be more persuasive content creator? That's just a question. I'm genuinely curious about what I could do, to be more persuasive content creator. Of course, ethically, not with some slimy tactics or whatever, but what are the ingredients for that? So that's a question I ask on Monday. Then I announce it to my blah, blah, blah. This is the question I go on to discover this week. And I actually go on walks. I listen to podcasts. I research this stuff. And then I come up with something interesting. And on Friday after this podcast, I plan to kind of send it out. So it's just very intrinsically motivating for me, because I just figure out stuff I actually want to learn, and it's more like a an article type of thing, which hopefully would lead to more trust or whatever. We'll see. I'm really experimenting with that, but yeah, newsletter is something I really focus on. I have done a bit of sponsorships. The list is currently across 9,000 people, so it's nice. It's nice. I'm optimistic about it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love like the art of kind of building an ecosystem, because if you just do one social media platform, all your eggs are in that basket, and that can work for a while, but maybe down the road, it's not as sustainable. So kind of adding in that newsletter thing, that's something I've done. And I too, in the past, maybe 3, 4, 5 months, have really found a process that works for me, that feels like it just kind of falls out of me. Versus like really having to dig and fight and getting behind and like missing a week, which maybe happened every now and then before. Now it's like I have plenty of ideas. I have a structure that I can just put that in an organized way, and it feels really good. And I think people really appreciate that. To kind of segue into a different realm a little bit, I'm really curious to hear, you have a very unique and interesting story around why you quit alcohol. I'm curious, you're still alcohol free, and how did that come to be?
Yeah, the alcohol thing it was a very interesting story. Like, of course, like when I was 18 years old, probably earlier, you start drinking with friends, and I was like doing downhill mountain biking for a good while, and there's like in the culture, like drinking beer is it's just part of it. So but whatever, long story short, like I've always like enjoyed alcohol. It was nice. I never got really, I guess, got super drunk or whatever, but I like the regularity of it. Having a couple of glasses of wine after work was nice, or a couple of beers or whatever. But there was an interesting moment in my life when it was a bit after my first kid was born, and that was around the time when I was already a bit curious about this online business thingy. And one day, I don't really remember why or something, but I was just sipping this wine glass, and I somehow decided that I need to layer on some extra motivation to figure out this online business type of thing. So I guess I was a bit more strict to myself or whatever, but I said to myself, like, hey, Janis, until you will make $10,000 from your side income, not your main like 9 to 5 or whatever, you can't drink alcohol. And I thought that like this will be this whatever cool, interesting motivation or something. And I stuck to it. And what I realized, which was very interesting realization in general, which leads back kind of to today, is that after 1 month of not drinking, it was just like I really realized, like, holy shit, I thought I will really miss it or whatever, but I understood I can't like fully function without the alcohol, go to parties or whatever, and so on, and it's awesome and it's great, and I don't really miss it. So it was like bummer, I thought this will be this great motivation to get my like online business in order, but it was absolutely fine. And it ended up that I didn't drink for, I guess, more than 3 years or 3 years or something around 3 years. I was absolutely drinking zero. And then I then I launched my course, or was already did some freelance or whatever with visuals, and kind of finally earned my money and like restarted drinking stuff. But now after now it's been 2 years again drinking or whatever, I just realized I crave it more than I would like to. especially, with this where you don't have a 9 to 5 and you're your own boss and you can like kind of take weekends whenever you want or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just craving it a bit more than I wanted to. And I don't know, if you drink a bit like later in the day, you really feel that on sleep and all that sort of stuff. It was just I'm very happy I had those 3 years where I understood, I proved to myself that I can function fully without alcohol, because previously I think had this identity that, having few beers with your friends, it's a must. I really don't see myself not doing it. But those 3 years proved to me that, okay, it's absolutely possible without it. So now looking back, I think I was like more happier, more productive. All things were kind of better without the alcohol. That's why I'm just quitting again, and probably for life, we'll see. But that's kind of the story and the idea of this.
That's really cool, man. And it's cool that it all started with that challenge of making
Yeah,
tempura on your side
it's
thing.
yeah.
That's really
It
cool.
was very random. I don't remember why or whatever. I don't know. Probably I was drinking too much and thinking just like, I just need to cut on alcohol to do my online
Yeah.
business thing. So
Yeah, that's
Are
awesome.
you still biking?
yeah, definitely. It's more like a hobby type of thing now. Previously, I was like more doing it more consistently, but now it's more like a hobby type of thing. But it's by far my favorite sport. I love downhill mountain biking. Now it's like kind of bikes have evolved, and now it's like enduro mountain biking, because you can pedal up with the same bike that you go down the hill on very complicated tracks. Which is nice. You don't need this chairlift, or somebody to take you up all the time. So
Right.
it's very nice, yeah. But it's by far my favorite exercise, and it's nice to be now in Spain, where we have actually mountains outside the window. 20 minutes with car,
Yes.
and I can get to like decent tracks. It's just amazing, because in Latvia it's like flat, and somehow I fell in love with downhill mountain biking by coming from Latvia. So so that's that.
Are you do you consider yourself more introverted or extroverted?
It's a funny question. I actually, few months ago, I was talking with my wife about around this, and I thought, like, I think I might be a bit of like introvert type of thing, But in general, what I understand is like you can look at it as a spectrum. There's hardcore introverts, hardcore extroverts. I'm probably somewhere in between, but probably
Nice.
more to the extrovert type of direction. but
Right.
she said that there's this nice exercise how to validate if you're an introvert or an extrovert. It's like, I think the idea was that when you imagine if you have a, I don't know, didn't need to
Battery?
bring this up. No,
Oh,
it was
okay.
like if you have 3 coins or something, and then if I talk to you guys, and after this conversation, do I feel like I will get more coins, or I will give away these coins? Basically, will I
Nice.
have more energy or less energy? But in general, I'm sure we will have this conversation. I'll be like, oh, nice, that was cool, fun, interesting. I'm more pumped up. I don't feel exhausted. So I guess in that sense, I'm more like type of extrovert type of thing. But it's not like people exhaust me and I'm just, oh my god, I want to be alone or whatever. I really enjoy alone time, but people give me energy. So I would say, I guess I'm more extroverted.
Great answer. Yeah, that's a cool exercise. I've never thought about it like that. So I'm curious what's next. If you're kind of just staying the course, gonna focus on your ecosystem and the course, or if you have kind of some next new projects that you're thinking about. I mean, even really far out, like, do you have anything on the horizon?
Yeah, I think like my ultimate goal, I would say, because in general, all the stuff I do, like what I want, of course, I want to do good stuff. I want to make meaningful work that, helps people and gives you a nice feeling that, oh, nice, I have helped some people, or whatever. And I guess my grand mission statement or whatever has been like that. Two very meaningful things in my life came when I discovered personal development and kind of fell in love with this idea of creator economy. So kind of my general rule of thumb is like, if through my work I can bring more people into these worlds, I think good job, Janis, you've done great. So that's kind of my big mission statement. But what I would like to do in general is, I want to, the fancy word from Tim Ferriss, lifestyle design. I really want to craft my day to day as I please and as I want. And if my work can be being curious about stuff I want and being creative, if that is my work, it's amazing. And I see myself mostly probably in future producing books, but more like coffee type of style of books, whatever, take on interesting project. And I submitted my book proposal very, very recently. We still don't have a deal. So there might be a book coming next year or in 2 years, we'll see. So that's a big, important project for me. Other than that, it's in terms of online business type of stuff, it's just growing the newsletter. I hope that newsletter could grow nicely. And if I bring on some sponsorships there, it could be a nice, consistent revenue stream, So that's a nice thing I'm focusing on. And it's more like something I control. So that's very important. And another thing which I do recently, it has a similar, not a similar mindset, but the same as I was able to productize this idea of explaining ideas visually. People ask me, hey, how did you do this, whatever. And now I have a course and people learn. It's a nice income and everybody's happy, etc. Another thing which I realize now, which I struggle with, is like sometimes I do create from a place of I need to do this versus I want to do this. Because, there is this whatever DMs and you do this business and then life comes up, and we move to Spain and there's bureaucracy, but you feel like you need to still produce this content or whatever. And then you create from this place, which I don't like. So I want to create more from a place of like, I really want to do this. And that's where idea of like, I want to develop some sort of like content system, which works for me, for my traits, whatever my lifestyle, but I want to be more ahead of my content. So I always create from this place of love, when free more space for like this book project or whatever else I kind of want to do. And that could be like a potential course later down the line, if I can like really prove that, okay, this worked for me, and my growth was like this and now it's like this. And that's when I discovered this thing. It's like a very, very basic way how to think about it. So that's basically what's on my plate at the moment, and kind of the vision for the future.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it does. I can't wait to see the book. I'm really interested in what that might look like. So you got to keep us posted. And when that happens, I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when that happens, you got to come back.
Let's speak that out to the universe. So
yes,
there's no going back. No. Yeah, I'm sure it will happen. It's just matter probably, will it be with publisher or with somebody else or with self-published? Because all that world is super confusing and like, I don't know. Yeah. Still need to see where that leads.
Well, we'd love to have you back on to talk about that experience and see what has come to fruition in the future.
Well, definitely. Publisher said to me, like, if we will make a deal, they said, like, when the book launch comes, we need to push you to as many podcasts as possible. So
put us on the list, man. Put us on the list.
Yeah, I would love to. I really enjoyed having a conversation with you guys. And I hope to have next time some new nuggets I could share with you through this random conversation we had. I really
absolutely. Thank you so much for spending time with us, man.
Thank you.
The world is overwhelming. We're constantly being pulled in a million directions, and it's only going to get worse. So much of what we're sold online is about planning, strategizing, and thinking. But doing is the hardest and most important part. The box is where projects get finished. In the box, you'll organize, prioritize your projects, and finish what you start. You won't learn anything new. You'll simply get a lot done and be a part of a small community of doers.